The stars blurred outside the small patrol ship as Lieutenant Jack Miller completed another sweep of the border zone. 6 months on this assignment had made the routine almost boring. Jack checked his instruments again and sighed. The Orion Nebula. Sector was quiet today, just like yesterday and the day before. Control, this is Patrol 7. Sector 49 is clear. Moving to final checkpoint before returning to base, Jack said into his comm system. Copy that, Patrol 7. Complete. Your route and come home, replied the bored voice of the controller. Jack stretched in his seat and rolled his shoulders. One more stop and he could head back for a hot meal and maybe a few hours in the recreation area. He guided his ship toward the last checkpoint, a small asteroid field at the edge of human-controlled space. The alert came without warning. His sensors screamed as 3 ships appeared from nowhere. They weren't there, and then suddenly they were, their stealth technology far beyond anything humans had encountered before. Control! 3 unknown vessels at my position! Jack shouted, hands flying across the control panel. Engaging evasive. A purple beam struck his ship, and everything went dark. When Jack opened his eyes, his head pounded and his mouth felt dry. He was no longer in his ship. Cold metal pressed against his back and dim purple lights glowed overhead. He tried to move, but restraints held his wrists and ankles. The mammal is awake, said a hissing voice. Jack turned his head to see a tall, lizard-like creature standing nearby. Its scales were dark green with black markings, and its yellow eyes watched him with no emotion. Jack had seen images of them before in briefings. Draxians, one of the most aggressive species in the known galaxy. Can you understand me, human? The Draxian asked, its mouth moving strangely around the words. Yes, Jack said, keeping his voice steady despite his fear. I'm Lieutenant Jack Miller of the Earth Defense Fleet. My capture is an act of war against... The Draxian made a sound that might have been laughter. Your designation and rank mean nothing here. You are now simply Specimen H-742. 2 more Draxians entered the room. They released Jack's restraints and pulled him to his feet. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to stand straight. They pushed him forward out of the small room and into a long corridor. The ship, Jack assumed he was on a ship, was much larger than he had expected. They walked through corridor after corridor, passing other Draxians who barely looked at them. The air smelled strange, like burnt plastic and something sweet. Finally, they reached a large circular room with dozens of transparent cells arranged in a ring. Each cell contained different creatures. Some Jack recognized from official contacts, others he had never seen before. The Draxians pushed him forward to one of the cells. Commander Vex will decide your final placement, one of the Draxians said. For now, you wait. They shoved Jack into an empty cell. The transparent door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. Jack immediately examined his surroundings. The cell was about 15 feet square, with a small raised platform that probably served as a bed, a depression in the floor in one corner that looked like it might be for waste, and nothing else. In the cells nearby, Jack could see other prisoners watching him with varying degrees of interest. A green-skinned being with 4 arms gave him what might have been a sympathetic look. A floating cloud of gas with tiny eyes ignored him completely. Hours passed. Jack paced his cell, trying to keep his muscles loose and ready. He needed to stay alert, to look for any opportunity. The Draxians brought him a bowl of something that looked like gray porridge. It tasted like cardboard, but Jack ate it all. He needed to keep up his strength. A commotion at the entrance to the room caught Jack's attention. A large Draxian with elaborate red markings on its scales entered, followed by several others. The marked one had to be someone important. The others showed clear deference. That's the human? The marked Draxian asked, stopping in front of Jack's cell. Yes, Commander Vex. Captured at the border of their territory. Commander Vex studied Jack with cold yellow eyes. Unimpressive. I expected more from a species that has caused so much trouble. Jack met the commander's gaze but remained silent. He had been trained for capture situations. Don't antagonize, observe everything, wait for an opportunity. Have the new specimens been processed? Vex asked one of the others. Yes, Commander. The Pyrovians are in holding cell 8. At this, Commander Vex's mouth stretched into what Jack assumed was a smile. Excellent. I have an idea for some entertainment. The way the commander said entertainment made Jack's stomach tighten. Bring the human. I want to see this myself, Vex ordered. The guards opened Jack's cell and grabbed him by the arms. They followed Commander Vex through more corridors until they reached another section of the ship. Here the cells were larger and more heavily reinforced. They stopped in front of a cell that glowed with internal light. Jack's eyes widened at what he saw inside. Two enormous creatures paced inside the cell. They looked like the dragons from Earth's myths. Scaled bodies, powerful wings folded against their sides, long necks and heads with sharp horns. One had scales that shimmered red like embers in a fire. The other was blue, with scales that seemed to radiate cold. Pyrovians, Commander Vex said, noticing Jack's surprise. Rare specimens, very valuable, very dangerous. The red dragon noticed them and let out a roar that shook the air. The blue one turned cold eyes toward them, assessing. Open the cell, Commander Vex ordered. One of the guards looked uncertain. Commander, the containment protocols. Override them, Vex snapped. I want to see what happens when we put them together. The guards pushed Jack toward the cell door. One of them hissed in his ear. Your species likes to call itself brave. Let's see how brave you are now, mammal. The door slid open, and Jack was shoved inside. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell. The door closed behind him with a final-sounding thud. The two dragons turned to look at him. The red one exhaled, and the air around its mouth shimmered with heat. The blue one's nostrils flared, releasing small crystals of ice that floated to the floor. What is this? The red dragon spoke, its voice deep and rumbling. They give us a snack? Hardly worth sharing, the blue one replied, its voice like ice cracking. Barely a mouthful. Jack stood very still, his mind racing. The dragons could speak. They were intelligent. Maybe that was something he could use. Behind him, Commander Vex watched through the transparent wall. This should be entertaining, the Draxian said. The Pyrovians have been refusing to perform for us. Perhaps hunger will motivate them. Jack looked around the cell. It was larger than his previous one, but still a prison. The floor was marked with scorch marks and what looked like frost damage. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. The red dragon took a step toward him, lowering its massive head to Jack's level. Its eyes were like pools of lava, and its breath was hot against Jack's face. What are you called, little thing? The dragon asked. Jack took a deep breath. Fear wouldn't help him now. My name is Jack Miller, he said, keeping his voice steady. Lieutenant, Earth Defense Fleet. The blue dragon made a sound like icicles breaking. It has titles. How quaint. Commander Vex and the other Draxians watched, waiting for the dragons to attack. Jack knew he needed to survive not just for himself, but to get back to his people, to warn them about this threat. The red dragon opened its mouth, revealing teeth like daggers. Jack didn't run. He didn't cower. Instead, he looked directly into the dragon's eyes and waited. The game was just beginning. Jack didn't move a muscle as the red dragon's hot breath washed over him. He had faced death before in space battles and ground missions. Fear was an old friend. If you're going to eat me, Jack said calmly, you should know I'd barely make a snack. Not worth the effort. The red dragon pulled back slightly, surprise visible in its fiery eyes. It speaks with courage, Frostbite, it said to the blue dragon. Most creatures wet themselves by now. A trick, Ember, the blue dragon called Frostbite replied. It hopes to save itself with words. Jack took a slow step backward, maintaining eye contact with Ember. I'm not trying to trick anyone, just stating facts. I'm more useful alive than as a meal. Outside the cell, Commander Vex made an annoyed clicking sound. Why isn't it running? Why aren't they attacking? The Draxian tapped on the transparent wall. Perhaps they need encouragement. A low hum filled the cell, and Jack felt his skin prickle. Some kind of energy field, he guessed. Ember roared in obvious pain, while Frostbite hissed and slashed at the air with razor-sharp claws. Entertainment, Jack muttered, understanding dawning. We're their entertainment. The energy field stopped. Ember snarled and sent a jet of flame toward the transparent wall. It dissipated harmlessly against some kind of barrier. Frostbite did the same with a blast of freezing air that crystallized into ice upon impact, then shattered away. Jack filed this information away. The cell could withstand extreme temperatures. Good to know. The Draxians waited a few more minutes, but when nothing else happened, Commander Vex made a gesture of disgust and left with most of the guards. 2 remained behind, watching. Jack slowly moved to the far corner of the cell and sat down, his back against the wall. The dragons eyed him but made no move to approach. They spoke to each other in a language of growls and hisses that Jack couldn't understand. Time passed slowly. Jack began his routine, a series of stretches followed by push-ups and sit-ups. Physical fitness had kept him sane during other difficult missions. It would do the same now. The dragons watched him with curiosity. "What is it doing?" Ember asked. Frostbite loudly enough for Jack to hear. "Some kind of ritual, perhaps," Frostbite replied. "Mammals are strange." Jack finished his exercises and wiped sweat from his forehead. "It's called staying in shape," he told them. "Helps me think, keeps me ready." "Ready for what, little mammal?" Ember asked, tilting its massive head. "There is no escape from this place. There's always a way out," Jack said. First rule of survival training. Frostbite made a sound like ice cracking. Laughter, Jack realized. "Your optimism is amusing, human. The Draxians have held us for 60 rotations. If we cannot break free, what chance have you?" Jack shrugged. "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." The conversation ended when a section of the wall slid open and 3 bowls slid into the cell. 2 large ones filled with what looked like raw meat, and 1 small, one with the same gray porridge Jack had been given before. Ember and Frostbite each took a bowl. Jack approached cautiously and picked up his. "They expect us to fight over food," Jack said, sitting down with his bowl. "Create more entertainment." "Wise observation," Frostbite said. "Tomorrow they will likely give us less." Jack ate slowly, watching the dragons tear into their meat. They were magnificent creatures despite the situation. Their scales caught the light in ways that made them seem to glow from within. That night, if it could be called night when the lights merely dimmed, Jack slept fitfully, always aware of the 2 enormous creatures sharing his space. He positioned himself in a corner where he could see both dragons and the cell door. The next day, just as Frostbite had predicted, the food that arrived was less than before. Jack's portion was halved, and there was only 1 large bowl for the dragons. Ember growled at Frostbite. "I am the larger. I require more sustenance." "Your size makes you inefficient," Frostbite countered. "I have gone without food longer than you." Jack watched them argue, their bodies tensing. This was exactly what the Draxians wanted. Conflict, violence, blood. Entertainment. "Split it," Jack suggested. "Equally." Both dragons turned to look at him. "What did you say, human?" Ember asked, smoke curling from its nostrils. "Split the food equally," Jack repeated. "Don't give them what they want." Frostbite's blue eyes narrowed. "And why should we listen to you?" "Because every time you do what they expect, they win," Jack said simply. "And I don't like losing." The dragons looked at each other, then at the single bowl of meat. After a moment, Ember used a claw to divide the meat into 2 roughly equal portions. They ate without further argument. Jack examined his own portion carefully before eating. The gray mush was bland but nutritious. He noticed something else. Small, black specks in the porridge that hadn't been there before. "They're drugging the food," he said quietly. "Yes," Frostbite confirmed. "It dulls our fire and ice, makes us weak." Jack considered this, then scraped off the top layer of his food where most of the black specks were concentrated. He ate the rest, knowing he needed strength. Over the next few days, a routine developed. The guards would watch, expecting violence. Instead, they saw Jack continuing his exercise regimen, sometimes talking with the dragons, sometimes sitting quietly in meditation. "What are you doing now?" Ember asked on the 4th day, watching Jack sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. "Clearing my mind," Jack said without opening his eyes. "Focusing, planning." "Planning what?" Frostbite asked, moving closer. Jack opened his eyes. Our escape. Both dragons made their respective laughing sounds. Impossible, Ember said. Nothing's impossible, Jack replied. Just difficult. He stood up and walked to the transparent wall, studying it carefully. Every prison has weaknesses. Every system has flaws. And what flaw do you see, human? Frostbite asked, genuine curiosity in its voice. Jack pressed his hand against the transparent material. They're creatures of habit. The guards change at regular intervals. Food comes at the same time. They expect us to behave in predictable ways. And this helps us how? Ember asked. When people expect something to happen a certain way, Jack explained, they stop looking closely. They miss things. That night, as the lights dimmed, Jack lay awake, watching the guards outside. One was clearly bored, the other half asleep. Jack began to notice small details, the pattern of their patrols, the way they checked the cell locks, how long each guard spent looking at each cell. On the 5th day, something new happened. The cell door opened, and 4 Draxian guards entered, carrying what looked like metal poles with energy crackling at the tips. Stand against the wall, specimens, one ordered. Medical examination. Jack complied, watching as 2 Draxians approached Ember with a large needle. The red dragon growled but did not resist as they extracted a sample of blood from its neck. When they approached Jack, he didn't resist either. But he watched everything. How they operated the needle, how they stored the sample, how they moved in the protective suits they wore. What are they doing? Jack asked Frostbite after the Draxians left. Testing, always testing, the blue dragon replied wearily. They seek to understand our fire and ice, to weaponize it. Jack nodded slowly. They want weapons, of course. He looked at both dragons thoughtfully. But they don't understand what they're dealing with, do they? What do you mean? Ember asked. They think you're just animals. Powerful, yes, but still just animals, Jack said. They don't see you as equals, as people. Frostbite's eyes glittered. And you do? Jack smiled for the first time since his capture. I do. And that might just be their biggest mistake. The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of labored breathing. Ember lay on the floor, red scales dulled and eyes half closed. A thin trail of smoke leaked from the dragon's nostrils, but there was no flame. What's wrong with Ember? Jack asked. Frostbite, who stood watching with concern. The air, Frostbite said. They have changed it. Less oxygen, I think. It affects Ember's fire more than my ice. Jack had noticed the change too, a slight tightness in his chest when he breathed deeply. He walked over to Ember and knelt beside the massive head. Can you hear me? He asked. Ember's eye, the size of Jack's fist, focused on him. Yes, little human, the dragon said weakly. I hear you. Jack placed his hand on Ember's neck, feeling the heat radiating from the scales. Your body temperature is too high, he said. You're fighting too hard for breath. Outside the cell, 2 Draxian guards watched with interest. One made notes on a small device. They're testing how we react to different conditions, Jack said quietly. I've seen this before. Standard procedure when studying new species. Frostbite moved closer. Can you help, Ember? Jack thought for a moment. Maybe. I need water and something to fan air. Frostbite looked puzzled but used a claw to push the water bowl toward Jack. Jack tore a strip from the bottom of his uniform jacket and soaked it in the water. Lift your head a bit, he told Ember. When the dragon complied, Jack placed the wet cloth against Ember's neck, where he had felt the heat was strongest. This should help cool you down while your body adjusts. Using another piece of his jacket, Jack began fanning air toward Ember's nostrils. Breathe slow and deep, he instructed. Like this. He demonstrated with his own breathing. Frostbite watched with interest. You have medical training? Basic field medicine, Jack explained. Every soldier learns how to keep themselves and their comrades alive until real help arrives. You are a warrior, then? Frostbite asked. Jack nodded. A soldier, yes. 6 years. In the Earth Defense Fleet. 2 as a patrol lieutenant. Ember's breathing gradually became less labored as Jack continued his makeshift treatment. After about an hour, the red dragon lifted its head. "Thank you, Jack Miller," Ember said, using Jack's full name for the first time. "Your help was unexpected," Jack shrugged. "We're all prisoners here. We should help each other." The Draxian who had been taking notes spoke to the other guard. Both looked displeased. A few minutes later, the air vents hummed and Jack could feel the atmosphere in the cell changing again. Ember's breathing eased further. "They didn't get the reaction they wanted," Jack said with a small smile. "So they're trying something else." That night, as the lights dimmed, Jack sat with his back against the wall, watching the guards change shifts. The dragons lay nearby, their massive bodies curled in opposite corners of the cell. "Tell us about Earth," Frostbite said suddenly. "What kind of world produces creatures like you?" Jack was surprised by the question but answered. "Earth is varied. We have oceans and deserts, forests and mountains. Much of it is water. The temperature ranges from freezing to boiling depending on location." "And your people? Are they all warriors?" Ember asked. Jack shook his head. "No, most are not. Some build things, some grow food, some study science or art. Many different jobs." "Yet you speak of warfare easily," Frostbite observed. "Your species fights?" "We've had wars, yes," Jack admitted. "Too many, but we've learned from them. Now we mostly fight to defend ourselves, not to conquer." "Like now? Against the Draxians?" Ember asked. "If necessary," Jack said. "We try diplomacy first, but we're always ready for the alternative." The dragons exchanged looks that Jack couldn't interpret. "What about your world?" Jack asked. "What is it like?" "Pyrovian," Frostbite said, "is a world of extremes, great mountains that breathe fire, valleys filled with ice that never melts. We thrive in these places where other creatures cannot survive." "Our kind is connected," Ember added, "through thought, through fire and ice. But here—" The dragon's voice trailed off. "You're cut off," Jack realized, "from your people. That's why you're weakening. It's not just the air or the food." "Yes," Frostbite confirmed. "We need the connection. Without it, we slowly fade." Jack processed this information. It might explain why the dragons hadn't escaped. Yet despite their obvious power, the next day brought a new challenge. The cell door opened and the Draxians pushed in another prisoner, a small, six-limbed creature with green fur and large eyes. It chittered in fear, pressing itself against the far wall. "New entertainment," Frostbite observed coldly. "They expect us to fight over territory now." Commander Vex appeared outside the cell. "A simple test," the Draxian announced. "The Xavian carries a device. The one who retrieves it will receive double rations for 3 days." The small Xavian looked terrified, all 6 limbs trembling. Ember's stomach growled audibly. The red dragon had been weakening visibly over the past days, the scales losing their luster, the movements becoming slower. "Food would help you regain strength," Jack said quietly to Ember. "Yes," the dragon agreed, eyes fixed on the small green creature. Jack stood up and slowly approached the Xavian. "I won't hurt you," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "Do you understand me?" The Xavian chittered again but didn't run. Outside, Commander Vex watched with interest. "The human tries kindness," the Draxian observed to a subordinate. "Disappointing." Jack crouched near the Xavian. "They want us to hurt you to fight over whatever device you have." He pointed to the dragons. "They need food more than I do. If you give me the device willingly, no one has to get hurt." The Xavian's large eyes blinked rapidly. Then slowly it extended one limb. A small metallic object rested in what passed for a hand. Jack took it and nodded his thanks. He turned to Commander Vex. "Here's your device. The dragons get the food." "Unacceptable," Vex hissed. "You must take it by force." Jack looked at the commander steadily. "You said the one who retrieves it gets the food. You didn't specify how." "I retrieved it. The dragons get the food." Vex's scales darkened with what Jack guessed was anger. Fine, but the Xavian stays. After the commander left, 2 bowls of food were delivered, twice the normal size. Jack pushed them toward the dragons. You need it more than I do, he told them. And I think we're going to need your strength soon. Ember and Frostbite ate gratefully. The Xavian remained huddled in the corner, watching them all warily. That night, while the others slept, Jack examined the small device he had taken from the Xavian. It appeared to be some kind of key or data storage unit. He couldn't tell what it was for, but he knew it must be important if Commander Vex had created a test around it. What is it? Frostbite asked quietly, apparently not asleep after all. I'm not sure, Jack admitted, but I think it might be useful. The blue dragon moved closer, ice blue eyes focused on the small object. It has Draxian markings, there on the side. Jack turned the device, seeing the small symbols etched into the metal. Can you read them? No, Frostbite said. But I have seen similar markings on the door controls. Jack looked up sharply. Door controls? Yes. When the guards open the cells, they use devices like that. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. So this could be a key, or part of one. For the first time, Frostbite's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Perhaps our escape is not so impossible after all, Jack. Miller? Jack closed his fist around the device. No, he agreed, not impossible at all. Jack spent the next 3 days watching the guards closely. He noted their routines, the way they used their devices, and the timing of each shift change. The small Xavian, which Jack had named Green for its fur color, stayed close to him, seeming to trust the human more than the dragons. One morning after the guards delivered their food, Jack gathered Ember, Frostbite, and Green in the corner of the cell furthest from the transparent wall. I have a plan, he said quietly. But I need your help. All of you. Ember, who looked stronger after several days of better food, lowered its massive head to Jack's level. What kind of plan, human? An escape plan, Jack said simply. But it's dangerous. If we fail, they'll probably separate us, or worse. Frostbite's ice blue eyes narrowed. Tell us. Jack pointed to the small device he had hidden in a crack in the wall. This is part of a key card system. I've seen the guards use similar ones, but it's not complete. It needs to be activated by another component. And how do we get this component? Frostbite asked. Jack looked at Green. That's where our small friend comes in. He gently touched one of Green's furry limbs. Can you fit through the food slot when they open it? Green chittered nervously but nodded. The food delivery comes in exactly 6 hours, Jack continued. When it does, Green will slip out and find the main control panel. The Xavian's small size and agility should help it avoid detection. Ember snorted a small puff of smoke. And what do Frostbite and I do in this plan? Create a distraction, Jack said. Something big enough to draw all the guards' attention. A fight, perhaps. Frostbite looked skeptical. We have avoided fighting each other all this time. The guards will be suspicious if we suddenly start. Not with each other, Jack clarified. With me. Both dragons stared at him. You want us to attack you? Ember asked, clearly confused. Make it look real, Jack said. But pull your punches. I need to appear injured, not dead. The dragons exchanged looks. This plan asks much of us, Frostbite said. And what of the other prisoners? Do we leave them? Jack had thought about this. Once we have control of the systems, we can free everyone. More chaos means better chances for us all. They spent the next hours working out details. Jack taught Green which buttons to press on the control panel, based on what he had observed. He showed the Xavian how to use the device they had. When the time came, they were ready. The food slot opened and a Draxian guard pushed in their daily rations. As planned, Ember suddenly roared and charged at Jack, who dodged but not quite quickly enough. The dragon's tail caught him and sent him flying across the cell. The guards immediately took notice. One called for others to come watch. Jack scrambled to his feet as Frostbite joined the attack, sending a blast of freezing air that Jack barely avoided. It looked convincing. Jack made sure of that, adding his own shouts and grunts of pain. While all eyes were on the dramatic fight, Green slipped through the food slot and disappeared from view. "You've been planning this," Jack shouted for the benefit of the watching guards. "Waiting until I trusted you." Ember played along perfectly, releasing a jet of flame that singed the wall near Jack's head. "Weak human! Did you think we considered you an equal?" More guards gathered to watch the spectacle. Commander Vex soon joined them, yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Finally," the Draxian commander hissed. "The entertainment I was promised." Jack took a hit from frostbite that sent him sliding across the floor. The cold burned his skin, but the dragon had carefully controlled the blast to avoid serious injury. Still, it hurt badly enough that Jack didn't have to fake his grimace of pain. Minutes passed. Jack began to worry. Where was Green? Had the small Xavian been caught? Or worse? Just as Ember was preparing another attack, the lights throughout the prison section flickered. A moment later, an alarm began to blare. "Now!" Jack shouted. Ember and Frostbite immediately turned their attacks toward the transparent wall. Flame and ice hit simultaneously, creating a thermal shock that cracked the supposedly unbreakable material. Commander Vex barked orders to the guards, who scrambled to respond to the sudden crisis. The cracked wall held for a moment, then shattered as Ember slammed into it with full force. Jack rushed through the opening, followed by the dragons. In the corridor, chaos reigned. Other cell doors were opening, releasing prisoners of various species. Green had done it. The small Xavian had managed to activate the emergency release protocol. "This way," Jack called to the dragons, heading toward what he believed was the hangar bay. His sense of direction, honed by years of navigation training, guided him through the unfamiliar corridors. They encountered resistance, Draxian guards who tried to stop them. But the combined might of 2 angry dragons and a determined human proved unstoppable. Ember's fire kept the guards at bay, while Frostbite's ice created barriers to slow pursuit. "The hangar should be through here," Jack said as they reached a large set of doors. The doors, however, were sealed shut. A control panel on the wall showed red lights. "Lockdown mode." "Stand back," Ember growled, preparing to blast the doors. "Wait," Jack said. He examined the panel carefully. "This needs a command code." From behind them came the sound of running feet, more guards approaching. "We don't have time for codes," Frostbite said urgently. Jack made a quick decision. "Ember, melt the panel. Complete circuit overload." The red dragon sent a focused jet of flame at the control panel, which sparked and smoked. The doors remained shut. "Now, Frostbite," Jack directed. "Freeze it completely." The blue dragon complied, encasing the damaged panel in ice. The rapid temperature change caused the internal components to shatter. With a grinding sound, the doors began to slide open, the emergency failsafe kicking in. Beyond the doors lay the hangar bay. Several small ships were docked, along with larger transport vessels. Jack's eyes immediately went to a sleek craft near the exit. "That one," he said, pointing. "Attack ship, fast engines, light weapons." They rushed toward the ship as alarms continued to blare. Other escaped prisoners had found their way to the hangar as well, creating more confusion as they sought their own means of escape. Jack reached the ship first and placed his hand on the entry panel. To his surprise, it opened immediately. "They haven't locked down the individual ships yet," he said as he climbed inside. "Our luck is holding." The dragons followed, barely fitting through the entrance. The ship's interior was cramped with them inside, but Jack didn't care. He slid into the pilot's seat and began activating systems. "Do you know how to fly this?" Frostbite asked. "It's not that different from our own attack craft," Jack said, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. "Basic principles are universal." Through the view screen, Jack could see Draxian guards entering the hangar, weapons drawn. Commander Vex was among them, shouting orders. "Hang on," Jack said as he fired up the engines. "This might get rough." The ship lifted off the hangar floor just as the first energy blast hit its hull. Jack punched the thrusters and the ship shot toward the hangar exit. "We're not free yet," Frostbite warned as the hangar force field loomed ahead. Jack grinned. "Watch this." He diverted power to the forward deflectors and aimed straight for the field. When two energy fields collide, the stronger one wins. The ship hit the force field at full speed. For a heart-stopping moment, everything seemed to pause. Then the field shattered, and they burst through into open space. Behind them, the Draxian prison ship rapidly grew smaller. Ahead lay the stars and freedom. Freedom lasted exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds. That's when the first Draxian pursuit ship appeared on the scanner. 2 minutes later, 3 more joined it. "They're faster than us," Jack said, eyes fixed on the controls. "This ship isn't designed for long-range escape." Ember, crammed uncomfortably behind the pilot's seat, growled. "So we fight." Jack shook his head. 4 against 1, bad odds. He studied the star map on the display. "We need somewhere to hide, or help." Green chittered from a corner of the cockpit, pointing at the scanner with one small limb. "What is it?" Frostbite asked. Jack looked where the Xavian indicated. "That's a neutral trading station. Galleon outpost." His eyes lit up. That could work. He changed course, pushing the engines to their limit. The stolen Draxian ship shuddered under the strain. "The outpost has strict rules about violence," Jackie explained as he flew. "All species welcome, no questions asked, but no fighting allowed. Heavy security to enforce it." "And you think the Draxians will obey these rules?" Frostbite asked skeptically. "They might not," Jack admitted. "But the station security won't let them dock with weapons hot. And if they do break the rules, every other species there will turn against them." As they approached the outpost, a massive wheel-shaped structure floating in space, Jack opened a communication channel. "Galleon outpost, this is..." He paused, realizing he couldn't give his real identity in a stolen Draxian ship. "This is Captain Spark requesting emergency docking. We have wounded aboard and are being pursued." A gruff voice responded, "Identify." "Your ship, Captain Spark," Jack thought quickly. "Salvage vessel, found this drifting. Had to use it when our main ship was damaged." There was a pause. Jack could almost feel the outpost security officer's suspicion. "Scan shows Draxian military configuration," the voice finally said. "This creates complications." "We're being pursued by Draxians," Jack replied urgently. "They'll be here in minutes. We claim sanctuary under Article 7 of the Neutral Space Treaty." Another pause, longer this time. Jack held his breath. "Sanctuary granted. Proceed to docking bay 12. Security will meet you." Jack released the breath he'd been holding and guided the ship toward the indicated bay. Behind them, the Draxian pursuit ships had closed half the distance. "What happens now?" Ember asked as they approached the docking bay. "We get inside before they catch us," Jack said. "Then we use the outpost's own rules to keep us safe while we find a better ship." The docking procedure seemed to take forever. Jack watched anxiously as the Draxian ships grew larger on the scanner. Finally, with a gentle thud, they connected to the outpost. "Let me do the talking," Jack told the others, as the airlock cycled. "Open." They stepped out into the docking bay to find 6 security officers waiting, weapons drawn. They were a mixed group, 2 humans, an insectoid species Jack didn't recognize, and 3 large reptilians that reminded him somewhat of the Draxians but with blue-gray scales instead of green. "Hands up," ordered one of the humans. Then he saw the dragons and his eyes widened. "What in the stars?" "We claim sanctuary," Jack said firmly, raising his hands. "Under Article 7. Pyrovians," whispered one of the reptilian security officers. "I thought they were just stories." "Very real," Frostbite said calmly, "and very grateful for your protection." The security team escorted them quickly through service corridors to avoid causing a panic among the outpost's regular visitors. They ended up in a large holding room with comfortable seating and food dispensers. "Station Administrator Cordova will see you shortly," the human security officer told them. "Don't leave this room." As soon as they were alone, Jack went to the room's computer terminal and began searching for information. "What are you looking for?" Ember asked. "News about the war," Jack said, "and any mention of Pyrovians. I need to know what we're dealing with." What he found disturbed him. The conflict between humans and Draxians had escalated in the months he'd been captive. Several border colonies had been attacked, and there were rumors, just rumors, that the Draxians had found a new weapon, something that could turn the tide. Dragons, Jack murmured. They were going to use you somehow. Frostbite looked over his shoulder at the screen. They wanted our fire and ice, our connection to our world. Before they could discuss it further, the door slid open. A tall woman with dark hair streaked with gray entered. She wore a simple but elegant uniform with the outpost insignia. "I'm Administrator Cordova," she said. "And you've caused quite a situation, Captain." "Spark, was it?" Jack stood up straight. "My real name is Lieutenant Jack Miller, Earth Defense, Fleet. I was captured by Draxians 3 weeks ago and held prisoner along with my friends here." Cordova's eyes moved to the dragons and widened slightly, but her voice remained calm. "The Draxians are demanding your return. All of you. They claim you're escaped prisoners who stole military property." "That much is true," Jack admitted, "but they took me in violation of treaty boundaries, and they were experimenting on the Pyrovians." "Pyrovians," Cordova repeated. "I thought they were mythical." "Not mythical," Ember said. "Just private. Our kind does not seek attention." A loud commotion outside the room interrupted them. Angry voices could be heard, one of them distinctly Draxian. "That would be Commander Vex," Jack said grimly. "He won't give up easily." Cordova frowned. "Wait here." She left the room, the door sliding shut behind her. Jack turned to the dragons. "If they force us back to the Draxians—" "They won't," Frostbite interrupted. "I've sent a call." "A call? To whom?" Ember made a rumbling sound deep in its throat. "To our people. The connection is weak, but it exists here. I felt it as soon as we docked." Jack felt a surge of hope. "Your people are coming?" "If they heard." "Yes," Frostbite said. "The question is whether they will arrive in time." They didn't have to wait long for an answer. Barely 20 minutes later, the entire station shuddered. Alarms began to sound, and the lighting shifted to emergency mode. The door slid open, and Administrator Cordova rushed in, her calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. "There's a ship," she said breathlessly. "Like nothing I've ever seen. It just appeared out of nowhere, the size of it." She shook her head in disbelief. Jack looked at the dragons. "Your people?" Ember's scales brightened to a deep crimson. "Yes, the Pyrovian High Council. They have come." The next hour passed in a blur. The Draxians, faced with a vessel that dwarfed even their largest warships, quickly withdrew their demands and departed the station. Jack, along with Ember, Frostbite, and the ever-present Green, were escorted to a meeting room where 3 Pyrovian elders waited. They were magnificent, larger than Ember and Frostbite, with scales that shimmered with patterns Jack couldn't quite follow. One was deep purple, one gold, and one a green so dark it was almost black. "You have our thanks, human," said the gold dragon after Ember and Frostbite had related their story. Few would have shown such courage or resourcefulness. Jack bowed slightly. "They were my friends. We helped each other." "Indeed," said the purple dragon. "And now we face a problem. The Draxians sought to use our kind as weapons against yours. This cannot be permitted." "My people need to know about this," Jack said. "About the Draxian plans, and about you." The green dragon's eyes, ancient and wise, studied Jack carefully. "For millennia, we have kept ourselves apart from the younger races. Perhaps that time has ended." 3 days later, Jack stood on the bridge of an Earth Defense Fleet cruiser that had been dispatched to Galleon Outpost. Beside him stood Admiral Carter, looking both impressed and intimidated by the massive Pyrovian vessel visible through the view screen. "So let me get this straight, Lieutenant," the Admiral said. "You escaped a Draxian prison by befriending dragons, stole an enemy ship, and accidentally initiated first contact with a species that could change the balance of power in the galaxy?" Jack smiled slightly. "Yes, sir. That about covers it." The Admiral shook his head. "And to think they locked you in with those dragons to get rid of you. Instead, you terrified them both. The Draxians with your escape, and the dragons with your—what did the gold one call it?" "Our controlled recklessness," Jack quoted. our ability to accept impossible odds and still function. As Jack watched the Pyrovian ship, he thought about Ember and Frostbite. They were back with their people now, but they had promised to return as ambassadors. A new alliance was forming, born in a prison cell where enemies had become friends. The Draxians had made a terrible mistake. They had locked a human in with dragons, thinking nature would take its course. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, understanding between two powerful species, and understanding, Jack knew, was the most terrifying weapon of all. The alert sounded across the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Valiant. Commander Susan Miller looked up from her console, her blue eyes narrowing at the flashing red indicator. She had spent 15 years with the EDF, but never before had she seen this particular warning. "Report," she said, her voice calm despite the sudden tension in the room. Lieutenant Alan Wright tapped rapidly on his screen, pulling up scan data. His normally relaxed face grew serious as he analyzed the information. "Unknown ship detected at the edge of the solar system, Commander. It just appeared. No warp signature, no approach vector. One moment nothing was there, and the next..." He paused, double-checking his readings. "It's massive, ma'am. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Susan walked to the main display. The mysterious vessel showed as a dark silhouette against the stars, absorbing rather than reflecting their scan beams. Its shape was unlike any human design, organic curves melded with geometric precision in ways that suggested an entirely different approach to space travel. "Where did it come from?" she asked. "Unknown, ma'am. It bypassed all our early detection systems." The bridge grew quiet as everyone processed this information. Humanity had expanded throughout the solar system over the past 50 years, establishing colonies on Mars, mining operations in the asteroid belt, and research stations around the outer planets. But despite all their technological progress, they had found no evidence of intelligent alien life, until now. "What's its course?" Susan asked, already suspecting the answer. Alan's face paled slightly. "It's headed straight for Earth, ma'am. Current speed puts arrival in approximately 72 hours. Communications Officer Diane Foster spoke up from her station. "Commander, I've been sending standard greeting protocols on all frequencies. No response." Susan nodded and opened a secure channel. "Admiral Peterson, this is Commander Miller aboard the Valiant. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention." Within minutes, Admiral Jack Peterson's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "Talk to me, Commander." Susan relayed the information while sending the scan data. The Admiral's expression grew increasingly grave. "I'm issuing a solar system-wide alert," he said after a brief pause. "All military vessels are to converge on Earth's orbit. I want a defensive perimeter established and get me a direct line to the President." "Sir," Susan said, "should we attempt to intercept?" The Admiral considered this. "No, we need more information. The Valiant will maintain observation distance but be ready to engage if necessary." After the communication ended, Susan turned to her crew. "Plot an intercept course. Maintain a safe distance of 5,000 kilometers. I want continuous scans. And analysis." As the Valiant adjusted its course, Susan felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. First contact, the moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared for centuries. "Energy spike from the alien vessel," reported Science Officer Paul Rogers. "It's unusual. Not weapons from what I can tell, but definitely directed toward Earth." "Some kind of communication?" Susan asked. "Possibly. The pattern is too regular to be random." Susan made a decision. "Contact the Interplanetary Communications Center. We need their best people on this." Dr. Olivia Garcia was halfway through her lunch when her communicator chimed with the highest priority alert she had ever received. As the ICC's leading xenolinguist, she had spent her career developing theoretical frameworks for communicating with non-human intelligence. Most of her colleagues considered her work purely academic. They were wrong. 20 minutes later, she stood in the office of ICC Director Greg Barnes, watching classified footage of the alien ship. "It's beautiful," she whispered, studying its strange design. "It's concerning," Director Barnes countered. "Military leadership is divided. Some want to shoot first and ask questions later." Olivia shook her head. That would be a terrible mistake. This is clearly an advanced civilization. If they wanted to harm us, they could have done so without announcing their presence. The EDF is picking up energy transmissions from the ship. They need someone who can make sense of them. Olivia felt her heart race. My team has been developing a mathematical approach to alien communication, basic principles that should transcend biological and cultural differences. How quickly can you be ready? I'm ready now, she said without hesitation. 6 hours later, Olivia found herself aboard a fast transport vessel heading toward the Valiant. With her was her most trusted colleague, programmer Kevin Howard. I still can't believe this is happening, Kevin said as they looked out the viewport at the stars. Actual aliens. We've prepared for this our whole lives, Olivia reminded him, though she felt the same excitement and nervous energy. What if they don't think mathematically like we do? What if they perceive reality completely differently? Olivia had considered this problem for years. Mathematics describes the universe. Any species advanced enough for interstellar travel must understand these principles even if they express them differently. The transport docked with the Valiant, and they were immediately escorted to the bridge. Commander Miller greeted them with a firm handshake. Dr. Garcia, thank you for coming. The situation has developed. On the main display, they could see the alien vessel had slowed as it reached Mars orbit. Smaller craft were now deploying from it in a precise formation. Are they preparing to attack? Kevin asked. We don't think so, Susan replied. The pattern they're forming seems deliberate, like they're trying to tell us something. Olivia studied the formation. They're arranging themselves to mirror our solar system, she said suddenly. Look, each ship positioned where a planet would be, with the correct relative distances. Paul confirmed this with a quick analysis. She's right. The pattern matches our solar system with 99.8% accuracy. They're showing us they understand where they are, Olivia said, and that they know about us. This is definitely communication. A new alert sounded. One of the smaller alien craft had changed course, heading toward the Valiant. Weapons status? Susan asked. Still no evidence of weapons systems, Commander, Paul replied. But they're definitely coming to us. Susan made her decision. Maintain position, let them approach. She turned to Olivia. Doctor, you're about to get your chance at first contact. As the alien craft drew closer, the Valiant's sensors provided a clearer image. The design was even stranger up close, shifting surfaces that seemed to react to their observation. They're broadcasting something new, Diane reported. A sequence of pulses. Olivia leaned forward. Let me hear it. The bridge speakers filled with a rhythmic series of tones. Olivia listened intently, then smiled. Prime numbers, she said. The universal language of intelligence. They're telling us they're ready to talk. The alien craft stopped 500 meters from the Valiant. Everyone on the bridge held their breath, waiting for what would come next. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and whatever happened in the next few moments would change their world forever. 3 hours passed as the alien craft remained motionless near the Valiant. Inside the Earthship, Olivia and Kevin worked non-stop to understand the strange signals. The bridge was quiet except for the soft beeping of instruments and the occasional murmur of conversation. The pattern keeps changing, Kevin said, rubbing his tired eyes. Just when I think I've found the logic, it shifts. Olivia studied the data flowing across her screen. It's not random. Look here, the sequences repeat but with small changes each time, like they're giving us a lesson, starting simple and getting more complex. Commander Miller approached their workstation. Any progress, Doctor? Yes, Olivia said, pointing to her screen. They started with mathematical concepts and prime numbers, geometric ratios, the value of pi. Now they're sending what appear to be symbolic representations. I think they're building a language primer. Can you respond? Susan asked. We can. Try. Olivia tapped instructions into her console. I'm sending back the same sequences to show we understand, followed by our own mathematical constants. When they sent the message, the alien ship's surface rippled, as if reacting to the communication. Something's happening, Paul called from his station. Energy readings are changing. The alien craft began projecting a beam of soft blue light. Within the light, shapes formed, simple at first, then increasingly detailed. "It's an image," Olivia whispered. "They're showing us Earth." The holographic display showed their home planet from orbit, then zoomed in on various landmarks. The Great Wall of China, the Egyptian pyramids, the Grand Canyon, but something was wrong. "These images aren't current," Kevin realized. "Look at the coastlines, they're different. And some of these cities don't exist anymore." "They're showing us Earth through time," Olivia said, excitement growing in her voice. "From hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago." The images continued showing human development through the ages. Then came recordings of radio broadcasts, television signals, and internet communications. All the electromagnetic waves humanity had been sending into space for over a century. "They've been watching us," Susan said, her expression troubled. "For how long?" The final image showed Earth as it currently was, followed by a simple message in clear English text. "We have returned." The bridge fell silent. "Returned?" Susan finally asked. "What does that mean? They've been here before?" "We need to report this," Kevin said, his voice shaking slightly. Susan nodded and opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Peterson appeared, on screen, with several government officials visible behind him. "We've made contact, sir. The aliens are communicating through mathematical sequences followed by visual data." Their final message was in English. "We have returned." The Admiral's expression grew grim. "That changes things. The President has authorized a diplomatic mission. Dr. Garcia, we're sending a shuttle with additional xenolinguistic specialists and diplomatic personnel. You'll lead the first contact team." "Sir," Susan interjected, "request permission to join the diplomatic mission." After a moment's consideration, the Admiral nodded. "Granted, Commander. Your military perspective may be valuable." As they ended the transmission, a new message appeared from the alien craft. "Coordinates on Mars near the human colony." "They want to meet us face to face," Olivia said. Back on Earth, the news of alien contact had spread worldwide. People gathered in homes, public squares, and places of worship, eyes fixed on screens showing the little information that had been released. In Washington, D.C., the President addressed the nation. "Fellow citizens, today marks a turning point in human history. We are not alone in the universe. I urge everyone to remain calm as we establish diplomatic relations with these visitors." Not everyone heeded this call for calm. In military bases around the world, forces were placed on high alert. At the North American Defense Command, Colonel Frank Harris watched the alien mothership on his monitors with deep suspicion. "We have returned," he repeated. "That doesn't sound like first contact to me. That sounds like they've been here before. And we don't know why they left or why they're back." His aide, Captain Linda Barnes, nodded in agreement. "The diplomatic team leaves in 3 hours. Should we proceed with Operation Safeguard?" Colonel Harris hesitated only briefly. "Yes, but keep it quiet. If these aliens are peaceful, fine. If not, we'll be ready." The shuttle carrying Susan, Olivia, and the diplomatic team approached the Mars colony. Built 20 years ago as humanity's first permanent settlement on another world, the dome-covered city of New Armstrong was home to 10,000 people. "I never thought I'd be coming to Mars for something like this," Olivia said, looking out at the red landscape. Susan checked her sidearm discreetly. She had been ordered to bring it but told not to display it openly. "Stay alert," she told Olivia quietly. "We don't know what to expect." The shuttle landed at the designated coordinates, a flat plain 5 kilometers from the main colony dome. Through the viewport, they could see a small alien craft had already landed. "Life support readings?" Susan asked the pilot. "Atmosphere. Outside is still Martian, thin and mostly carbon dioxide. We'll need suits." The team donned their Mars suits and gathered at the airlock. The diplomatic leader, Ambassador Joe Bennett, addressed them. "This is a historic moment. Our goal is peaceful contact and cultural exchange. Follow protocol and wait for translation before responding to anything they say." The outer door opened, and they stepped onto the rusty surface of Mars. Ahead, a door opened on the alien craft. 3 figures emerged. Olivia gasped. The aliens were humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall and slender, they moved with unusual grace in the low gravity. Their skin had a faint bluish tint, and their 4-fingered hands ended in delicate points. But most striking were their eyes, large with no visible pupils reflecting the Martian landscape like mirrors. The aliens wore no protective suits, somehow surviving in the thin Martian atmosphere. Ambassador Bennett stepped forward and began the prepared greeting. On behalf of the people of Earth, we welcome you in peace and friendship. Olivia's translator picked up a response, not in sound but in patterns of light flickering across the alien skin. They're saying something, she whispered to Susan. The translator is processing it. The words that came through shocked everyone. We are the archivers. We have returned to speak with the children of those we guided long ago. Susan's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, then stopped. What do they mean by guided? Before Olivia could respond, one of the aliens approached and extended its hand in a very human gesture of greeting. But when Ambassador Bennett took it, something unexpected happened. Images flooded into his mind. Pyramids being built, ancient cities rising, and strange visitors teaching early humans about the stars. The ambassador staggered backward, overwhelmed by the vision. They were here, he gasped. Thousands of years ago, they helped shape our civilization. The alien nodded slowly. Now we need your help. The darkness comes. The shuttle returned to Earth with Ambassador Bennett, Susan, Olivia, and half of the contact team. The other half stayed on Mars to continue direct communications with the archivers. Earth's governments needed to hear what they had learned firsthand. Setting: the White House Situation Room. Susan stood at attention while Olivia and the ambassador explained their findings to the president and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They call themselves the archivers, Ambassador Bennett said. His face looked tired. The mental connection with the alien had drained him. They visited Earth thousands of years ago. They guided early human civilizations, teaching them agriculture, architecture, and basic astronomy. Why? Asked the president, leaning forward in her chair. They say they are the memory keepers of the galaxy, Olivia explained. They travel to promising worlds, helping young species develop faster. When they find a species with potential, they nudge its development. General Nancy Clark frowned. And we're supposed to just believe this story? Susan spoke up. Ma'am, when the archiver touched Ambassador Bennett, it shared memories directly. I saw the effect. This wasn't just words, it was some kind of mental data transfer. The president looked troubled. So why did they leave? And why come back now? They left because of something they call the darkness, Ambassador Bennett said. A wave of destructive energy that moves through the galaxy, destroying all complex matter in its path. They left to escape it when it approached our solar system last time. And now it's coming back, Olivia added. They say it will reach us within 2 months. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Is there proof of this threat? General Clark asked finally. They've offered to share their data, Olivia said, and they want to help us prepare defenses. Or so they claim, a new voice added. Colonel Frank Harris had been listening from the back of the room. This could be an elaborate trick to make us lower our defenses. The president nodded slowly. We need to verify their claims before committing to anything. Dr. Garcia, you'll continue working with them on communication. Commander Miller, your ship will escort a science team to examine their vessel. Susan saluted. Yes, ma'am. And Colonel Harris, the president added, continue your security preparations, but discreetly. If they are telling the truth, we don't want to appear hostile. Across the world, amateur astronomers noticed something unusual. William Baker, a university researcher in Arizona, was the first to document the phenomenon properly. The ancient monuments are responding to the alien ship, he told his colleague on the phone, his voice excited. The standing stones at Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, even the massive Moai statues on Easter Island, They're all emitting faint energy signatures that match the frequency of the alien broadcast. Will had been studying these monuments for years, convinced they held technological secrets beyond their time. Now his theories were being vindicated in ways he never imagined. "I need to get inside the Great Pyramid," he said, already packing his equipment. "There's a chamber I've suspected exists, but I've never been able to locate it. If I'm right, the alien frequency might reveal it." 3 days later, Will stood inside the ancient structure with a special scanner he had built. The frequency emitted by the alien ship resonated within the stone, revealing hidden passages that had remained secret for thousands of years. Will followed the signal to a previously unknown chamber deep within the pyramid. What he found there changed everything he thought he knew about human history. The walls were covered in writings that matched no known ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. And in the center of the room stood a metal object that should not have existed in the ancient world. A device with curved surfaces and precise geometry that reminded Will of the alien ship in orbit. Will took pictures and sent them to Olivia. "I think I've found their technology," he wrote in his message. "They didn't just guide us, they left things behind." Aboard the Valiant, Susan prepared for the mission to the Archiver mothership. Her crew had been expanded to include scientists from various fields. Dr. Ben Carter, a physicist specializing in energy wave phenomena, examined the data the archivers had shared. "If these readings are accurate," he said to Susan, "the archivers are telling the truth about the darkness. It's a wave of energy that breaks down atomic bonds. Nothing complex could survive it." "Can it be stopped?" Susan asked. "Theoretically, yes, with a strong enough energy shield covering the whole solar system. But we don't have the technology to generate something like that." "The archivers say they do," Susan said, "but they need our help to implement it." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from Earth. Colonel Harris had moved several military satellites into position around the alien mothership against direct orders. "What is he doing?" Susan muttered, opening a channel to Earth Command. Before she could connect, sensors picked up energy spikes from the satellites. They were powering weapons. "They're going to attack the mothership," Susan realized with horror. "Everyone to battle stations. We need to stop those satellites before they fire." But it was too late. The satellites launched their missiles toward the alien vessel. Susan watched in dread as the weapons approached the mothership. To her surprise, the missiles simply disappeared before impact, absorbed into the ship's strange hull without explosion or damage. The archiver ship remained motionless. For a moment, Susan hoped they hadn't noticed the attack or had chosen to ignore it. Then a message came through on all frequencies, translated into every human language. "We understand your fear. It is natural to distrust what you do not understand. We forgive this action, but time grows short. The darkness has accelerated. It will reach your system in 3 weeks, not 2 months as we first calculated." Susan's blood ran cold. "Get me Earth Command," she ordered, "and prepare the shuttle. We're going to that ship now, with or without permission." In Washington, Colonel Harris was being reprimanded by the president. "You disobeyed direct orders and nearly started an interstellar war," she said, her voice tight with anger. "With respect, Madam President, I was testing their intentions," Harris replied. "If they were hostile, they would have retaliated. And if they had, we would all be dead," General Clark snapped. "Your actions were foolish and dangerous." The meeting was interrupted by an aide rushing in with new information. "Madam President, our deep space telescopes have detected something massive approaching the solar system. It matches the archiver's description of the darkness." The president's face paled. "How long do we have?" 3 weeks, maybe less. Colonel Harris looked down at his hands. "I still don't trust them," he said quietly. "But I hope I'm wrong." The survival of Earth now depended on cooperation with visitors they barely understood, guided by artifacts left thousands of years ago, and threatened by a cosmic force they couldn't yet comprehend. Time was running out. Susan's shuttle approached the Archiver mothership with caution. Through the viewport, she could see the massive vessel more clearly now. Its surface shifted and flowed like liquid metal, yet maintained its overall shape. The ship had no visible, Engines, weapons, or even entry points. How do we get inside? Asked Dr. Ben Carter, looking at the smooth exterior. As if in answer to his question, part of the hull rippled and opened, creating a perfect docking port for their shuttle. They're inviting us in, Olivia said. She had insisted on joining this mission despite the obvious dangers. The shuttle pilot carefully aligned with the opening and locked in place. The team put on lightweight environmental suits as a precaution before opening their hatch. Stay alert, Susan told the group of 5 scientists and 3 security officers. We're here to learn, but safety comes first. They stepped through the hatch into a curved corridor that seemed to form just as they entered. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air read as perfectly breathable on their instruments. They've created an Earth-like environment for us, Dr. Carter noted, checking his readings. Temperature, pressure, air mix, all matching Earth normal. A ripple of light flowed along the corridor ahead of them, moving slowly as if beckoning them to follow. Susan nodded, and the team moved forward. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The space seemed impossibly large, as if it couldn't fit within the ship they had seen from outside. Above them, a perfect recreation of Earth's night sky glittered. Below, the floor was transparent, showing the stars beneath their feet as well. It's beautiful, Olivia whispered. A figure appeared in the center of the chamber, an archiver taller than the ones they had met, on Mars. Its skin rippled with patterns of light that seemed to form symbols and images before fading away. I am the keeper of memories, the alien said, its thoughts translated directly into their minds rather than spoken aloud. Welcome to our vessel. Susan stepped forward. I'm Commander Susan Miller of the Earth Defense Force. We come seeking understanding and cooperation. The keeper gestured gracefully with 4-fingered hands. We have much to share and little time. Follow. The floor beneath them shifted, carrying them deeper into the ship. They passed chambers filled with strange devices, holographic displays of distant worlds, and containers that seemed to hold samples of plants and other life forms. These are the archives, the keeper explained. We preserve knowledge, culture, and biological samples from thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Like a cosmic museum, Dr. Carter said with wonder. More than that, the keeper responded. We are the memory of the galaxy. When the darkness passes, we help rebuild what was lost. They stopped in a chamber where hundreds of containers glowed with a soft light. These hold genetic material from species whose worlds were consumed by the darkness in previous cycles, the keeper said, including many from worlds that no longer exist. Olivia examined the containers with fascination. You're preserving biodiversity across the galaxy. It is our purpose, the keeper said simply. Now let me show you why we need your help. The chamber transformed around them, becoming a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. A dark wave approached from one edge, consuming stars as it moved. The darkness is a wave of energy that breaks down complex matter, the keeper explained. It passes through this region of the galaxy in cycles of roughly 7,000 years. Last time, human civilization was too primitive to be of assistance, so we left to avoid the wave, leaving behind markers and technologies that would help you develop. The artifacts that William Baker found, Olivia realized. Yes. We hoped humanity would advance enough by our return to help us create a solution. The darkness can be stopped, but we lack a critical approach. What approach is that? Dr. Carter asked. Innovation, the keeper said. We archivers excel at preservation and refinement, but we struggle with novel solutions. Humans, however, are natural innovators. You find unexpected paths, create new applications from existing technologies, and adapt rapidly to challenges. The map zoomed in to show Earth with a simulation of what would happen when the darkness arrived. The planet's surface crumbled, oceans boiled away, and all life vanished in seconds. This cannot be allowed, the keeper said softly. Back on Earth, William Baker worked with engineers to study the device he had found in the pyramid. The object was like nothing they had ever seen, a metallic sphere with intricate patterns etched on its surface. When activated by the alien frequency, it projected a complex holographic diagram. "It's a shield generator," said engineer Samantha Powell after studying the projection for hours. "But it's incomplete, like it's missing key components." Will nodded. "I think that's intentional. The archivers left us the blueprint, but we need to finish it ourselves." Samantha's fingers traced the holographic design. "The principles here are beyond our current technology, but not completely incomprehensible. This part here resembles our quantum field generators, but far more advanced. Could we build it?" Will asked. Samantha considered the question. "With the blueprint, and using some of our newer technologies in ways they weren't designed for, maybe, if we had enough time and resources." Will's phone chimed with a message from Olivia, reporting what they had learned aboard the alien ship. "Time is exactly what we don't have," he told Samantha. "The darkness is coming faster than expected. We have 3 weeks at most." Colonel Harris stood in his underground command center, watching satellite feeds of the alien mothership. Despite the president's reprimand, he still didn't trust the visitors. But now his focus had shifted. "If this threat is real," he told his staff, "then we need to be ready to evacuate as many people as possible." "Evacuate to where, sir?" Captain Linda Barnes asked. "If this darkness destroys the whole solar system, where could we go?" Harris had been considering this problem. "The alien ship. It survived the darkness before. It could again." "You want to ask the aliens for help after attacking them?" Linda asked incredulously. "Not ask. Take." Harris displayed plans for a military operation. "If diplomacy fails, we need a backup plan to secure that ship for humanity's survival." Linda looked troubled. "Sir, with respect, that would be an act of war against beings far more advanced than us." "Sometimes survival requires difficult choices, Captain," Harris replied grimly. On the mothership, Susan and her team watched as the Keeper displayed designs for a shield that could protect the solar system. "We have the theory and capability to generate most of the shield," the Keeper explained. "But the final component eludes us. We need human ingenuity to complete it." Susan looked at Dr. Carter. "Can we do this?" The physicist studied the schematics carefully. "The principles are sound, but the power requirements are enormous. We'd need every nuclear reactor on Earth working together, plus energy from the archiver ship. And we'd need something else," Olivia added, examining the design. "These points here, they look like amplification nodes. We'd need to position devices throughout the solar system to strengthen the shield." "Your species must decide quickly," the Keeper said. "To implement this solution requires full cooperation between our peoples. The darkness comes. Will humanity stand with us?" Susan looked at the simulation of Earth's destruction, then at the Keeper's alien face. "We have no choice," she said. "We stand with you." The next 2 weeks were the most intense period of cooperation in human history. Countries that had been enemies for generations now worked side by side. Every major research facility on Earth focused on a single goal: completing the shield design on the grounds of the United Nations in New York. The President of the United States stood with leaders from around the world to address humanity. "We face a threat beyond anything in recorded history," she said, her voice calm but serious. "But we do not face it alone. Our visitors have offered us a chance for survival, and together we will take it." Across the globe, power plants were modified to channel energy toward the SHIELD project. Space agencies launched satellites carrying amplification nodes designed by the Joint Human Archiver team. The Archiver mothership moved into position near Earth's moon, ready to serve as the main generator for the SHIELD. At the heart of this cooperation was a small team working out of a laboratory in Arizona. William Baker and Samantha Powell had been joined by Olivia Garcia and a group of archivers to finalize the SHIELD design. "The problem is synchronization," Samantha explained, pointing to her calculations. "The energy from Earth's power plants has to perfectly align with the archiver technology, or the SHIELD will fail." An archiver named Lightweaver touched the diagram with its slender fingers. "Your quantum technology approaches the problem differently than ours. We need to create an interface." Will studied the ancient device from the pyramid. "I think that's what this was meant to be." an interface between our technologies, but it needs our input to be complete. Olivia looked up from her computer. What if we don't try to make our technology match theirs? What if we create something entirely new instead? The idea sparked excitement. Rather than forcing Earth technology to work like the archivers, they would create a hybrid approach that used the strengths of both. Samantha's eyes widened as she ran new simulations. It works. By using our quantum fluctuation principles alongside their energy distribution methods, we get something more powerful than either approach alone. Typical humans, Lightweaver said, its skin flickering with what seemed like amusement, always finding the unexpected path. Aboard the Valiant, now serving as a command center for the defense operation, Susan coordinated with ships positioned throughout the solar system. Each carried a node that would help extend the shield's protection. Jupiter team reports ready, Lieutenant Alan Wright announced. All nodes in the outer system are online. Susan nodded. What about the Mars colony? Evacuation is complete. All colonists are back on Earth except for the technical team maintaining the node. Susan checked the latest data on the approaching darkness. It had reached Pluto's orbit and was accelerating. The outer dwarf planets were already gone, simply broken down into basic particles as the wave passed through them. Time estimate? She asked. 36 hours until it reaches Earth, Alan replied grimly. Susan opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Peterson, we're ready to begin shield activation. All nodes are in position. The Admiral's face appeared on screen. Good work, Commander. Start the sequence. As Susan gave the order to begin, emergency alarms blared through the ship. Multiple craft launching from Earth, Alan shouted. Military transports, heading toward the Archiver mothership. Susan recognized the signature of the vessels. They belonged to Colonel Harris's command. What is he doing? She demanded, opening a channel. Colonel Harris, stand down immediately. Harris's face appeared on her screen. Sorry, Commander, can't do that. Our intel suggests the shield might not work. We need a backup plan. Securing. The alien vessel to save at least some of humanity. You'll ruin everything, Susan argued. The shield needs the mothership as its primary generator. If you attack them now, we all die. Harris hesitated, doubt crossing his face for the first time. On Earth, in the Arizona lab, the team watched in horror as they received news of the attack. The shield activation has begun, Samantha said. We can't stop it now. The main screen showed the darkness approaching faster than predicted. The wave had consumed Neptune and was already reaching Uranus. Will turned to Lightweaver. What happens if your ship is under attack when the shield activates? The Keeper will follow protocol and retreat to save our archives, the Archiver replied. Our vessel contains the genetic heritage of thousands of worlds. It cannot be risked. Olivia made a decision. Get me a direct line to the mothership now. When the connection opened, she spoke directly to the Keeper of Memories. The attack is unauthorized. Most of humanity stands with you. Please don't abandon us now. The Keeper's response was solemn. We understand fear drives this action. We will not retreat, but our ship must shift to defensive mode, which will reduce power available for the shield. What does that mean for Earth? Olivia asked. The shield will be incomplete. We may save the inner system, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, but the outer planets will be lost. Susan watched as the darkness consumed Saturn's rings, turning the beautiful structures into dust. Jupiter would be next. The attack on the mothership had failed. Colonel Harris's ships had been disabled without being destroyed, showing remarkable restraint from the archivers. Shield power at 60%, Alan reported. Not enough for full system protection. Susan made a quick decision. Divert power from the Valiant to the nearest node. Every bit helps. That would leave us without shields, Alan warned. I know, Susan said firmly. Do it. Across the system, other ship captains made the same choice, sacrificing their own safety to strengthen the shield. The darkness reached Jupiter. The massive planet, largest in the solar system, began to break apart as the wave passed through it. The node positioned there transmitted its final data before being consumed. In the Arizona lab, the team watched the readings with growing despair. "We're losing the outer system," Samantha said. "Shield power still insufficient for Earth protection." Will looked at the ancient device now integrated into their control systems. "We need more power." Lightweaver's skin pulsed rapidly. "There is one possibility. The mothership itself could serve as a focal point, channeling energy rather than just generating it." "What would that mean?" Olivia asked. "It would likely destroy our vessel, but it might save Earth." On the mothership, the Keeper received this suggestion from Lightweaver. Without hesitation, it began the reconfiguration. "Our purpose is preservation," it communicated to all humans connected to the network. This was always a possibility. The massive ship began to glow, channeling energy from across the system into a concentrated beam aimed at the approaching darkness. Susan watched from the Valiant as the Archiver mothership transformed itself into a last line of defense. The darkness had passed Mars' orbit and was minutes from Earth when the shield finally stabilized. The wave struck the invisible barrier with tremendous force. Energy cascaded across the shield, making it visible as a shimmering blue dome encasing Earth, Venus, and Mercury. On the mothership, the Keeper sent a final message. "Remember us. Our archives are now yours to protect. The future of many worlds rests in human hands." The ship began to break apart as it channeled more energy than it was designed to handle, but its sacrifice worked. The shield held. 1 year later, Susan stood with Olivia, Will, and Samantha at a memorial built where pieces of the Archiver ship had fallen to Earth. Around them, seedlings grew, plants from 1,000 worlds, preserved in the archives and now taking root on their new home. "They saved us all," Olivia said softly. Susan nodded, "and left us with a responsibility. We're not just Earthlings anymore. We're the guardians of life from across the galaxy." Will pointed to the night sky, where new ships were being built, human vessels designed with Archiver technology. "We've already detected signals from other survivors," he said. "Other species who created their own shields or escaped the darkness. And they'll need our help," Samantha added. "Just like we needed the Archivers." As they spoke, one of the seedlings unfurled glowing leaves that pulsed with patterns of light, reminiscent of Archiver skin. Life would continue, changed, but unbroken. Earth was no longer just humanity's home. It had become, as the Archivers had intended, the capital of a reborn, galactic community.